Hello everybody, welcome back to Creating Hanley. I'm Kimberly, your host here at Creating Hanley. Hello! And we are making this pear Scrappy Postage Stamp PEAR quilt block. And it is 5.5 by 7.5 inches. 5.5 inches by 7.5 inches, including the border on the outside here. So, let's get into making this. Now, you can see these are very scrappy little squares right here. So, just go into your scrap bin and take whatever works for you. It doesn't have to be yellows or oranges or whatever. You're making a pear. It can be purple, teal, green, you know, whatever colors you want that works for you in your project or your future project. Use those colors. I just happen to have these that I thought would work, and so that's what I used. So you're going to need little scraps. Like these are postage stamp for a reason. These are 1-inch squares right here. So every one of these is 1-inch square. Now not every block is 1-inch square. Now my background is this cream color, and you can see close up it is not a 1-inch block. So I try to make it a little bit easier in that regard. You don't have to have every block a 1-inch block. So I tried to save a little bit of time by using slightly bigger pieces. Now that's 2 inches because each one of these is 1 inch, remember? Okay, so let's get into making this. Now, you can change up. Now I'm just going to say that I made my stem and leaf the same, identical for all of my pear and apple blocks. So remember, this is number 2 in the series. The first video I did was just introducing these blocks. Now this is the first in constructing the pear. So this is actually video number 2 in our pear and apple series. Postage stamp Scrappy pear and apple. Okay? Alright, so that's that. Now, I have already cut the pieces, so I didn't exactly fussy cut them, but it was fussy. So you have to have all these little teeny tiny pieces. Let me see if I can get that more into the picture here. And let me get the scissors out of the way. So you can see this is what I did. Each one of these is 1.5 inch. So for your pear, I wrote down what I did. You will need this. So let me just read this because my writing is not the best. So for the pear, I'm just going to go from stem. So what I did was stem and leaf top to bottom, and then the borders very last, okay? So I will reference each of these pieces as I go. Okay. So, and this is just a creation that I did. You will probably find some pattern online somewhere. I just looked at a picture and I recreated, and I wanted it to be small, but I didn't want to go smaller than 1 inch. So maybe I will at some point. I'll come up with a way that we can make these blocks even smaller. That is really fiddly, and I don't have time any extra for any more fiddly than this. So that's why this is the way it is. I did not follow a pattern. I just looked at a picture and I recreated it myself. So if you see a pattern and you think I copied it, I did not copy it, but it's probably similar to what somebody else has done. I don't know. I just saw a picture, so I'm sure it's out there. Now, do you have to make it scrappy? No. Your scrappy could be this. It could be 2 pieces scrappy. It could be this part and then this part. Okay? So you can have one color here or the same color up here. You can make it all the same color. You can make it completely different. You can make half one way and half another way, however you want to do that. Now, obviously, you can see I kind of zigzagged the not the joints, but kind of the seams here. That was not on purpose. It looks kind of cool, but it was not on purpose. It was accident, but I was working with small pieces, and I was getting tired sewing this together. But overall, I think it came out okay. I actually sewed this 3 times just to get it to match, and I think it turned out pretty good the 3rd time. It's a charm, right? So anyway, that's that. So what you will need is a stem color, only one. So I used this brown. I happen to have this like swirly brown right here. black, gray, whatever it is, gold fleck. That's color, it worked for me. 3 1/4 inch, not even 1 inch, 3 1/4 inch by 1.5 inch. And along with that is the background, 1.5 inch by 2.5 inch. So that's this. That's this unit right here. You're going to put this together. So you need 3 1/4 inches because each seam allowance is 1/4 inch. And you don't have to have 1/4 inch showing. You can have it bigger. You can have it smaller if you want. But this is the way I'm doing it. And you can create yours however you want. But I just cut this 3 1/4 inch widthwise by 1.5 inch tall because every one of these squares is 1.5 inch by 1.5 inch. And so you need these all to match, okay? At least height. All right. And then you want enough tail right here. You want enough tail to cover the rest of the, the background, okay? So this is going to be way too big, but whatever. That's how I cut it, and that's how it is. I didn't cut this specifically to be this big. It was just a leftover piece, and it works perfectly. So that's what I did. Now, back to this. The leaf, you are making a half square triangle. And I have one sewn already here. As an example, those of you who have been sewing a while already know how to make a half square triangle. But I'm just going to show you, on a half square triangle, you want to put, so this is a 2 by 2, 2 inch by 2 inch, and you need 2 of them. Put your right sides together, so print happy side, back side. Put the right sides together, so you have the backs showing. And then on the whiter part of it, that you can see a pencil line or a drawn line, draw your middle line diagonal to diagonal, just one line. This is going to be your cut line. And then you sew on either side of that 1/4 inch away. And then, and this is how you make your half square triangle. And then once you have those sewn in, you cut right along that line. Now you can use a rotary blade if you want. Just doing this on the video. And now you have 2 triangles right here. 2 triangles. Now open these up and voila. Now there's another square. Now the square is cut in half with color, right? One is color, one is your background. That is called a half square triangle. Those of you who have been sewing a while already know this. Those of you who are brand new, welcome to the world of half square triangles. These are gold, all right? And not just in color either. Half square triangles are your friend. Okay, so you can see in this example, I have 4 half square triangles, 2 on each side. So that's why we only make 2 of them. And then up here in the leaf, we also have 2 half square triangles. And that makes your leaf, okay? So we did 3 half square triangles just for this project, okay? So I'm using the exact same color for my half square triangles as I used in here. It's the exact same thing, okay? All right, so that's that. Half square triangle. That's how you make your leaf, okay? So, and then so what you do is you just arrange it in a different pattern than this, okay? Now, for the pear color, for the pear, you are going to need whatever colors you want. Gather up your colors. You're going to need 10 1.5 by 1.5 squares. So that's what I have here. I have 10, and I laid them out in the order that I want them in. So here's my 10, 2, 4, 6, 8, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I'm sorry, 12. I guess you need 12. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, and 12. I'm sorry, this should be a 12. You need a dozen of these. Oh, I know what I did. I know why I put 10 here. Okay. I did that for a reason. Because if you see at the top, these are not full half square, or I'm sorry, these are not full squares. You have to snowball the tops a little bit. So that's why I put 10, because I took these 2 out of commission. However, cut 12. I hope that makes sense. I hope I didn't screw anybody up. So you need to cut 1 dozen of these 1.5 inch squares. So you have to cut a dozen of these 1.5 inch squares. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12. Okay? And then the half square triangles are going to go on these sides, and then that's where you get your rounded bottom of the pear. Okay? Now, you're going to need the little background scraps to snowball these corners. And I did not use, I kind of measured it, but if you look closely, they're not exactly the same. But you know what? It's fruit. And fruit is not symmetrical usually. So that's why I put on my little note 10. But do 12, okay? 1.5 by 1.5. All right, now moving down. Maybe I should write that right now so you guys know. I don't have a pencil. All right, 12. Okay. Now, you need your 4 HSTs for the pear, and I just showed you how to do that. So get your pear color and your background color, and then you put face sides together. Okay? Face sides together. Line them up perfectly. Get your square edge or get your flat edge, and then from corner to corner draw a line, and remember that is your cut line. You're going to sew 1/4 inch seam allowance on both sides. Okay, I just showed you how to do that. All right, so that is for the pear. And yeah, I put little snowball BG as background. So you just need a couple of little scraps for this portion right here. So I just have a couple of little scraps. I don't measure them. They're just going to be scrappy, just big enough so that it covers that corner. Okay, so that's that. Now, that's the pear. Now continuing on to the sides, you're going to need these 2 sides because the pear goes smaller at the neck and larger at the bottom. So you need a little extra background on the sides here. Make these 1.5 by 2.5. 1.5 inches long by 2.5 inches long. This is obviously 2 inches because it's 2 blocks, but you need seam allowance. So make it 1.5 by 2.5. You need 2 of those. And then for your borders, I only made mine 1 inch. So 1 inch strips. I cut 4 1 inch strips by 8 inches. This is only 7.5, but I gave myself wiggle room. This is 5.5, and this is 7.5. You can be exact if you want. I gave myself some wiggle room just so I could trim it, or if something happened, I have a little extra to play with, okay? And also, yeah, that's kind of where you get your scraps for this, but not really because you put those on last. So anyway, so that is the pear, okay? That is that. That is that. Now, let's see if we can put this together. Okay, I'm going to set these aside. I don't need those till the end. You can use this. I don't know where I can put this, so it is like a template for you guys. So anyway, I'm just going to put this off to the side. So let's start with our pear. So now that you have your pieces, now that you know how to make your HSTs, hopefully you already have your iron ready to go here. So let's just bring this up a little bit. These are all the colors I used. So you can see my scraps were actually yardage. I just cut these little teeny tiny pieces from yardage. And now you understand why it was so fiddly and fussy and just, yeah, it was a lot. Okay. So these are little scrap pieces for later. I'm going to put these kind of aside right up there. Since I already did this one, I'm just going to iron open the half square triangle. So why don't we work on our half square triangles right now? We only need 3 of them. I just did 1. So let's go back over here. If you want to add a leader, I'm going to move this out of the way so I don't burn my arm. And then I'm going to see if I can bring this a little closer for you. So you line up your, those of you who have been sewing for a while, you already know how to do this. This is just repeat. But those of you who might be new, which way would be better for you to see? I'm not even sure. You want to line up your, so your drawn line right here to the 1/4 inch line on your foot. You probably can't even see that because of the light shining on it. But anyway, there should be a 1/4 inch mark on your foot, on your presser foot. If not, there's a 1/4 inch mark usually on the bed of your machine. Now, once you put fabric over it, you're not going to see that, right? So what you can do is extend with some tape. I'm going to pretend this is tape. You can extend with some painter's tape or washi tape or something. Right where that line is, just extend it straight down. And if you don't have a surface like this, usually the machine comes with a little extra thing. You can extend it down, or if it's on the sewing table, if it's on a table, if it's built into the sewing cabinet, there's a little bit of surface area there. Just put your tape down, and then you would just follow your fabric right along that line. Okay? Can you see that? Let me see if I can. Right along that line you would sew. Okay? All right, I'm going to put this back over here. Maybe that's an okay angle for you to see. Okay. So sometimes in the comments I get people saying, "We already know this. You took way too long to explain that." Yeah, if you've been sewing for a while, you do already know this. If you are brand new to sewing, this is new and you've never done it before. So I want to make sure I cover the basis so that you understand how we get to the HST. HST means half square triangle, okay? So let's cut this leader off, and we're going to, again, cut right there on the cutting line, on the line that we just drew. And then, so you split those apart, and then when you open these up, there is your half square triangle. It's still a square, but here's your triangle, and it forms a square, okay? Now, I am going to iron the seam to the dark side. You can iron the seam to the light side if you want, but I don't know if it'll show in the film here. There's a shadow. So I'm going to iron to the dark side, and it has nothing to do with Star Wars or anything like that. Although that is fun. Okay. So now we have our 4 HSTs for our pear, but we have to square these up because we need these to be 1.5 inches. So in order to square these up, that takes a little bit of time. And I'm going to take you over to my cutting surface. I'm sorry, I did not want to do this today, but I'm going to do it right now. I don't like to, I was hoping to just keep the camera in the same place. So I'm going to take this whatever this is, and use this part of this. I'm not sponsored by this equipment at all. So right here, this is a 6.5 inch measuring tool. 6.5 inch square, 6.5 inch, 6.5 inch. I just want to use this portion right down here, this 1.5 inch square. So what I'm going to do right now is line up this 45-degree angle. Hopefully you can see that. I'm lining up the 45-degree angle, that mark, right along the line right here where the two fabrics meet, that seam line. I'm lining up the 45-degree line with that. Now, I want to make sure that there is fabric on either side of this 1-inch mark. So there is fabric on either side of this 1-inch mark so that when I cut it, I don't cut it too small. If you cut it too small, you have to start all over again. So I'm going to trim off that little dog ear right there. And I'm going to trim off just a teeny tiny bit. I'm going to flip this around. I'm going to lay this back down. Now in this section, I can line up this 1-inch square exactly on the edge of my newly trimmed edge, 2 edges here, this 90-degree angle edge, with the ruler and the newly trimmed fabric all meeting together. 45-degree angle, straight down the center. Everything is now square. I can push a little bit of pressure on your ruler and then trim, and the pressure goes straight down on your cutting surface. So you're using your rotary cutter, push the pressure down as you rule forward and trim, and now you have a newly trimmed, cleaned up edge of your 1.5-inch half square triangle. Okay, so that is right there. Let me get it perfect. 1.5-inch half square triangle. Great. We're going to do that with all 4 of these and the 2 leaves. So, let me get the rest of these 3. And I still have to sew the leaf. These sides you won't even need to trim because they would just be absolutely perfect. Which is fine. You don't have to trim up everything all the time. If it's perfect, then that's good. Alright. But I'm just going through the motions here so you can see what I'm doing. Again, line up that 45-degree angle. Now, there are other ways to do this? Yes, there are. This is, you're just making double, triple sure that everything is in alignment. If you have a block lock or if you have a half square triangle measuring tool, there's other ways to do this. Now, for example, if I leave this folded and I put my measuring tool like this, I can measure a half square triangle just from doing this. Now, this is a different way to think. Completely different way to think about this. So, you want to line up the, right at the point, this is even more difficult, but you line the point up. Here, I'll take one that hasn't been cut yet. Line the point up right in the center there. And then at the 1.5-inch mark, you line up your triangle. And whatever needs to be trimmed off, then you trim it off that way. Okay? So now when you open this up, now you still have the dog ears. So that's why you can still do it that way, but then I'm cutting extra because now I have to trim off these little dog ears. These little pieces right here, these little tags, for some reason in sewing they're called dog ears. So you just trim off these little tags, these little extra triangle tags, because they get in the way. So I'm going to go back to my 45-degree angle and trim up this way. Just to make sure everything, because I did it the other way before, I'm just going to use the same method of trimming, making sure my 1-inch angle is, or my 1-inch is here, and then this is the extra 1/2 inch, so I know this is a 1.5-inch square. Okay. If you're concerned, you can always double check it with a 1.5 inch square. Double check it and everything lines up. Okay? Yes. Is this taking a little extra long? Yes. Yes, it is. This video? Yes, it is. We're getting the basics down here. Once we do the pear, the apples are going to be easy. Okay? Once we get this, the apples are going to be easy. So, now I have my 4. Okay. Let's go back over to the sewing machine and sew together the, where did it go? Stem. Did my stem fall to the floor? Okay, I might have to cut a new stem. I don't know where my stem went. Alright guys, wait, lift up. Whoop! I don't know, I don't see it there. Okay, I might have to cut a new stem. I don't know where I just put it. That's what happens when you get going real fast. Okay. Green, green together. Put the green sides together. And same thing. Take your straight edge. So yeah, this video is going to be a little bit longer. I am going to sew the whole thing. So if you have sewn already, if you're not new to sewing, then fast forward through all this stuff so that you don't get bored. If you are new to sewing or you just find this entertaining, then we are doing this in real time. This is going to be real time in how to make this, okay? So I'm going to take this back over to here. Back and forth again. I really wanted to avoid doing that. I do apologize. That's a little bit inconsiderate. Okay. Oh. Of course, every time I get on camera, nothing ever goes easy. So, line up the 90-degree mark with the 45, split down the center, trim, trim. And when you're making HSTs, when you do a lot of them at the same time, it goes pretty quick. So you just sew everything together first. Sew them all together first. And then you can come in and trim everything. And then you have a pile of your trim stuff. And then you can take it over to the iron. Or you can iron everything first and then take it over to the trim board. However it works best for you. Okay, back to here. And again, sorry about the back and forth. Okay, I think we've done all our... Oh, here it is. Here's the green right here. Great. I'm going to put this back at the apple where I stole this one from. Okay, so I had my pear lined up. Everything got a little bit skewed here, so let me just put this back in some semblance of order that I wanted it to be in. So my green leaves go up here. The top of the pear goes here. This is part of the top of the pear. Here starts the bottom. I wanted it to go like this and to the outside, and then this goes here. And now we have our half square triangles, which go like this. So put the color pointy part to the inside, the color pointy part to the inside, the color pointy part to the inside, okay? So now this is starting to look like this. I'm going to do it upside down so you can kind of see it. Doesn't matter. This is starting to look like this, Okay, I'm not putting the same colors in the same place. It's going to be a little bit different. Now, my leaf. Now, you want, again, the color pointies to go kind of to the inside, except this is going to flip around. So, for the leaf, I'm going to do this upside down so you can see it in your way, okay? Now, here's the stem. The stem goes here. Now, the leaf, you want this to go like that. So it's like the leaf is growing out of the pear or the stem. And then you're going to flip this around and make this design, okay? And that's how this is going to go together. Now, I'm going to take these two. I'm going to flip right sides together. I'm going to sew a 1/4 inch on this line right here. Okay? So, make sure everything is lined up exactly as perfectly as you can get it. Because these are such small squares, when you get wonky, it goes wonky fast and it starts to look really bad. I'm still going to use a 1/4 inch seam allowance. And now I'm just going to chain piece. So I'm just going to leave that in there. Chain piecing means you're just pushing a whole bunch of fabric through the machine without snipping at the in between. Okay, now taking this stem on here, I'm going to sew on this side. So I'm going to flip this around, put it through the machine this way, a 1/4 inch, because we cut our stem 3/4 inch. So a half of that is going to be in a seam allowance. Now, do you have to do that? No, you can use a scant 1/4 inch or 1/8 of an inch. Now, when you open this up, here's the background, here's the stem to the background like this. You can iron it. I always like to press because I like working with a flat surface. And then when I open this up, here's now what your leaf looks like so far. Press that open. Now, there's going to be a lot of bulk on this one because there are four layers of fabric that you're squishing over on one side. So 4 layers of fabric are squishing over here and here, here and here. So it's going to be a little bit bulky. That's why I like to press. I'm just using a hot, dry iron, no steam. Now, if you want to, you can add a little bit of steam, or I just use a little water bottle spray and spray that on. Okay, here is my leaf. Now, these two go together, and I'm simply putting the leaf on top of the stem as such, and sew a 1/4 inch right. So I'm just checking the back to make sure everything is in alignment. You have maybe a tiny bit of wiggle room, but remember, these are only going to end up being 1 inch squares. So 1/4 inch seam allowance. And take that out, open it up, and there is your stem and leaf unit so far. Okay. All right. So this is what it's going to look like. Now, I'm going to iron this because, again, I like working with a flat fabric, a flat surface. So right here is my leaf and stem unit. Is this tail going to be too much? Yes, absolutely. Can I trim it after I put it in the block? Yes, absolutely. So I'm just going to leave that. So this is the very tip top of the pear unit. So this part is done. I'm just going to set this aside. Okay. Now, I'm going to start working on the pear body itself. And I'm going to start at the bottom and work up. Now, here's my little scraps to do the top. Okay. I'm starting at the bottom and working up because these can make rows. These are already good to go to make rows. Now, these side pieces have to go on after you put these middle ones together. So, which means you could put these together first if you wanted to, and then add these, and then do the rest of the rows and then put them all together. However you want to do it, however it works in your brain is fine. This is just the way I'm going to do it, starting from the bottom to the top. So again, take 2 pieces, right sides together. And that is just pretty much what I'm going to do for the rest of the time here. So if you want to fast forward through this, feel free. If watching somebody sew is mesmerizing, have at it. I'm trying to get it so that you can see not my shirt, but both things at the same time. Okay. Now these 2 units right here make up the bottom. Okay? So, if you are unsure which square goes in which place, you can always take a picture of it with your phone, and then you will know how you had your blocks laid out, how you had your little squares laid out. Now I'm going to take these apart back here, and I'm going to sew these 2 units together so I don't forget what they are. This is the bottom, so this went here, and this piece went here. Now make sure these are in the same line, because if you screw it up, put one this way or do something like kind of crazy, you're gonna have to rip it apart and redo it. Which, it's not the end of the world, but it's just time consuming and kind of a waste of resource. It's a waste of thread. You didn't really want to have to do that. Okay, so this is how I had it set. So this is how I'm going to do this. Right sides together. 1/4 inch seam allowance. Now it's really important to try to follow the same seam allowance throughout the entire project, because if you use a scant 1/4 inch seam allowance on one time and then you use a generous 1/4 inch seam allowance, your squares are going to end up like this, okay, where this is maybe a little smaller than maybe this one, or you know, it might be a little bit wonky, and you can see these are not meeting, these seams do not meet, which kind of makes it, you know, super scrappy and kind of fun. But you know, that might show up in your triangles, in your corners where you're not meeting your points exactly. Okay, all right, so this was here, and then this is here, and then I put these 2 together. So you can do it however you want to in your head, whatever makes sense. If you wanted to label them and actually write on pieces of paper or fabric or little stickies like this, and you know, kind of do your system that way, feel free. Now I'm gonna take this out just because I want to see what's going on here. Now when I open up this one, this is now my bottom. This becomes the bottom row right here. And I believe I had this set up this way, so now I'm going to do this. Oh, and of course I lost my thread, my top thread, out of the needle. Which just means I have to rethread, and I pretty much have to do this every time I'm on video with you guys. And one of my viewers asked me, why don't I use my automatic, you know, my automatic thing over here? Oh, that's because during the pandemic it broke and I never got it fixed. I couldn't get it fixed. I called around, and yeah, wasn't happening. And then so after 2020, I just have been doing this for so long, I just continue to do it. Now because I rethreaded that, I'm going to put a leader in, just to see if something isn't right, and something is not right. So I'm going to have to redo this. Actually, I'm going to take the thread out completely. So I just took the thread out, and I'm going to rethread the whole thing. And sometimes you have to do that. And because I don't edit, I'm not editing this out. It is in the video, and sometimes you just have to do that during your project. So that's how things go sometimes with sewing machines. Okay? And I think my bobbin thread is in pretty good. Now, that's better. That is fixed. We're good to go. I'm going to take that out. And 1/4 inch. Nice. Now, back to here. And I'm just going to be a little bit quiet now. You could just watch me sew. If something comes up, I will mention it, of course. If I think of a tip, I will tell you maybe like what I have found to help. Okay. So, yeah. So now one thing is when you're working with scraps, not all fabrics are the same thickness. Not all fabrics are the same quality. If you're using cotton and then you go to like a cotton blend, and then you go to a batik is what I was trying to think of. When you go, when you're using fabrics like that, then things might get a little bit different. Yeah. So, and if you're using scraps and you're not sure if some of the fabric has been pre-washed and some hasn't, sometimes you're working with that. Like some fabric might be pre-washed and already shrunk, and then some fabric is not. And so, yeah, if you're working with different fabrics in that sense, things are going to be a little bit different, a little bit off maybe, or just not working the way that you want them to. Okay. Now, these are the top of the pear. So now I'm going to place these two like this. Now, if you're ever unsure, just go back to your project and kind of, just place it in place and see visually if that works. And yes, visually that works. So I'm putting the top sides together, 1/4 inch seam allowance. And you can see I stopped chain piecing because I want to put each individual unit together. Okay, so this is how this works. All right. Now, I'm going to make this unit here. I'm just going to put this together right now. So, I'm going to start with the bottom. I'm going to place this right sides together on the next row up. Now I want to make sure the seam allowance or the seams in the center match up. So see if you can nest these seams. Some people say nestle. Nest these seams together, and then you should have the same length on both sides, and then this should be flat across. If you need to trim, go ahead and square everything up. Make sure your piece is squared, trimmed up, looking good. And then 1/4 inch seam allowance straight on the middle. So that it looks like this. Hey, I think I did a pretty good job there. Actually, no, I did not. Look at the edges. Look at the edges. This shifted. Now, that means the middle, actually look, the middle lined up perfectly. So the middle lined up, but the edges are a little bit off. So you know what? Right now I'm not going to worry about that. That is going to throw off these corners though. I'm not necessarily going to lose my point over here, but I might lose my point over here. Okay? So just know that that can happen. So that just means that, like I was saying before, I did not have exactly the same seam allowance. Some was probably scant, some was probably too generous. Like this might have been too generous. I don't know. Maybe the cuts on the squares were different, and maybe the way that I ironed the seam allowances, that shifts fabric too. So it can make one piece a little bit smaller and one piece a little bit bigger. Yes, it does. It does do that. So you think that's crazy, but yeah, it does do that. So that can happen too. And when you're working with these small postage stamp pieces, you're going to run into stuff like that sometimes, okay? That's just the way it is. So if you wanted to, you can rip out that stitch and then align the edges here, which would misalign the center, but you might be happier with the edges lined up because then you won't lose your points on your half square triangle. So however that works for you. I'm just going to leave it, and then I'm going to place this on here on the top, making sure my fabric is flat, and I'm going to use the same method. So I'm lining up the center and lining up these edges. And sometimes a little trick is to, if one fabric is a little bit shorter than the other, just kind of gently tug on it so that they line up on the edges. Gently, gently, gently. Gently is the key. You don't want to yank on it so that all the inherent threads are super tight. Now, let's see how good of a job I did here. Okay. That looks okay. It looks like this side lined up. And it looks like this side lined up for the most part. There's a little bit of overhang here. But it looks like I'm not going to lose my point there. And I'm definitely, and this is way too short. I'm not going to lose my point there. So actually I will lose the point over here. So if you wanted to shift, so if you were, and this, but again, this point lined up. So the points in the center lined up. It's just the ones on the edges that didn't. Okay. So however you want to play with that, that is up to you. If that turns out to be your project, then you can make up your mind however you want to fix it or not, like fix it, right? Fix it or not fix it. It's not broken. It is scrappy, for sure. Okay. So now here's the bottom of my pear. Now I'm going to work on the top. Now remember, these two edges are snowballed. I could do them now or I could do them later. And I think I'm going to do them later. So because it's on the outside, so I can put these two together. Pretty sides together, face sides together, right sides together, wrong sides out, or the backs out. And then, same thing with this one. Put these two together. And actually, I sewed them in the same line, so I don't even have to cut this. I can just sew them as is like this. So what I am going to do is nest the seams. So I'm going to iron one seam one way and one seam the other way. So let me show you here what I did. Iron one seam one way and the other seam the other way, like so. And then I'm going to nest the seams. Put these together without cutting that thread in between. Nest those. And I can feel where they meet. And you can see where they meet right there. You can see that. And you can see that there. And they meet nice in the center. Everything is flat. So now I'm going to sew, oops, make sure that isn't flipped up. This one was flipped up by accident. So now, again, I just want to make sure everything is squared up and flat. I'm going to sew right along that edge where I did not cut that thread. I don't need to, because now I'm sewing the whole thing together. And when you open it up, now you have a 4-patch. This is a little mini 4-patch right here. Okay? Look at that, squared up right in the center. That's beautiful. Okay, now, the top I want to snowball. And I keep saying that word, and you're like, what does snowball mean? It's August. What does snowball mean? Before I put these sides on, I want to, so these two are very light. Yeah, that's not a very good contrast there. That probably should have been darker. But this is what snowball means. See these teeny tiny little corners cut out with the background? That is snowballing. So what we're going to do is, so let me flip it this way for you. So when these go on the sides, this edge should be a little bit round up here. These tops should be a little bit round because it's a pear. Now, do you have to do that? No, you can make it square if you want. That's fine. It's a scrappy project. But I'm going to kind of round the pear top. So I'm just going to take these little scraps that I have, these background scraps, and I'm simply placing them across. Now, if you want to get technical, come in a 1/4 inch on both sides. So use, here, let me take this away. So come in right at the corner, a 1/4 inch right there. And you don't want to go any less than this because this 1/4 inch seam allowance is going to get lost, right? So this is where I would like place the fabric at the very least. So what I mean by that is place right sides together, and you're going to place the fabric like this, okay? You're going to place the fabric like this, because what you're going to do is sew a 1/4 inch seam allowance here, and then when you fold it and flip it up, now that corner of the color has been replaced by background fabric. That makes sense, right? Let me get that out of the way. You can see that. And then after you sew it in, then you square it up, okay? So you can see doing this after you've put the 4-patch together is a little bit easier than just working with 1.5 inch square, teeny tiny little piece. So it gives you a little bit more handle to hold on to, right? Yeah, yes it does. Okay, so if you want to get super technical, take your marker, take your 1/4 inch square. Let's see, where's my 1/4 inch square? Well, I guess that is, no, that's half. So 1/4 inch square, and then mark that, okay, on both sides, so you know not to go any smaller than that. Okay. And then, oh, you couldn't even see that. So you mark, mark. And then take your fabric and lay the right side over that line you just drew. And then you're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from here. So you're going to sew a 1/4 inch away from this edge. You're going to sew a 1/4 inch right here. Okay? And then you're going to fold that over and then do the same thing on this side. Fold that over, and then you're going to square it up. All right, so here we go. Now, does it have to be absolutely perfect on both sides? No, it does not, unless you unless you really want it to. Okay, so now this is what the fabric looks like out of the machine. And then you're just going to flip that up. You can finger press or press it. And now you can see I've replaced that corner with this scrap. Now in a bit, I'm going to take my straight edge and square that up. But first, I'm going to do this side. Now when you're doing this, you want to make sure whatever scrap you're using, that it's able to cover that. If you're using a scrap that's too small and then it goes to here, that's no good. So you want to make sure that your scrap is big enough that it covers what you're trying to cover. All right, here we go. Now, oh, I just used my 2.5-inch piece, guys. That was not a smart move. So now I have to take this all out. So here's another mistake I made. So I'm not editing that out. I want you to see, that's a good reason why you should mark your pieces. So this piece and this piece are my sides. So I should have used this piece right here. And you guys probably saw that on the video and started screaming, Cam, you're using the wrong piece. But see, I couldn't hear you because I'm just over here flopping my trap. So let's do it right this time. And open that up. There we go. Okay. Now, that is better. And you can use your rotary cutter. You can use whatever you want. I'm just going to do this on camera real quick. So I'm using, now I flip it over to the back because I want to use this corner, this existing corner as a template. Okay, my fabric is flat. I'm just going to cut right along that edge and right along this edge, right along this edge, and right along this edge. Okay, now do you need to cut away this piece down here? No, you don't. On this one I did, but I realized you don't have to. And in fact, it's probably better that you don't because this is so small. Okay, so just leave it there. All right, now I can take these pieces, and if you want to, you can see this is getting a little bit wonky. You can trim this up, square this up, this 4-patch, square it up so it's all, I hate to say the word square, but yeah, square it up so it's square. Okay. Line up this so it's another 1/4 inch seam allowance. Oh my gosh, you guys. And then you open that up, and then here is another 1/4 inch seam allowance. So this is me making this real time, and I'm taking a little bit extra time to teach like some super basic things. If you're not new, it's not going to take you this long to do it. But if you're brand new and you want to try your hand at a Scrappy Postage Stamp project, then it's going to take a little bit of time getting used to it for the very first time. Okay, now I ironed that down. Now you can see how those edges are snowballed. Are they absolutely the same on equal sides? No, they're not equal lateral, but that's okay. Now there's a couple things you can do. Now we're at this stage. So this part goes on to here, and then here's our stem and leaf that we did in the beginning. That can go on here. Now you can see this part up here is a little bit ragged. If you want to, take a straight edge and trim that up. Same with these. If you want to, take a straight edge and trim those up. But I'm not, just for the sake of camera, I just want to film this. And so what I'm going to do is put this on here, and I'm going to line up this edge with this edge. Make sure this edge is lined up too. If I put my stem here, which I could if I wanted to, put my stem here, I run out of room over here. So make sure you don't do that, okay? So right sides together, and then if you want to, you can actually trim it up here for both sides, you know, both, and then, but I'm not going to do that. I'm just taking it straight over to the machine, and I'm just going to let the thread straighten everything for me. 1/4 inch seam allowance, and we'll see how that turns out on the leaf. Oh, wait, here. Keep on going. Okay, now this is extra. I don't need to keep sewing because there's nothing on the other side of that. Okay, now let's open this up and see what we have. All right, so there we, oh, I sewed it upside down. You guys! Ugh. Okay, my seam ripper just fell to the floor. It's getting close to midnight and I have to work in the morning, so I'm making really simple mistakes and I'm working upside down to try to make sure you see it, and I can't see it very well. Okay. My computer's stopping. This has been an hour. Okay. All right. We're almost done. Hang in there. We are almost done. So that's how you seam rip. Just rip that out. All right. Now, let's make sure I get this right. Okay, I'm going to do it my way so I can see it. And place this on here. Is this how I want to do it? Yeah. Okay. 1/4 inch. Now let's open it up. Yep, that makes more sense now. Okay. Fabulous. All right, now. Again, because I like to work with a flat surface, I'm going to iron. You can't even see that. I'm ironing. And it's getting a little bit wonky because I'm hot, I'm sweating, I'm tired. I want to get this done. It's been an hour on this video already, and that is too long. But we are almost done. We just have to put these two sections together. Nope, this is how I want to do it. These two sections together, and then square it up, and then you put your borders on last, okay? So this is exactly how I want it. I wanted the orange at the bottom, and these two touching. So we're going to put these two together. And again, same thing. You can match up these seams right here. And it really helps to square up your project because now it's getting super wonky. And that's not necessarily a good thing. Even though it's scrappy, just because it's scrappy doesn't mean it needs to be wonky. If you want it to be wonky, fine, that's one thing. But if you just want it scrappy but not wonky, then really pay attention to where your seams meet. And it's a good idea to square up every time. Because it's when you don't square up that it gets wonky. And that actually turned out pretty good. Turned out pretty well. All right, there we go. So I'm not going to mess with that anymore. I'm happy with that. So I'm going to square this up. It just means I'm going to trim this off. Normally, I don't use my scissors as much as I've been using it on here, but I've been doing that so that you can see what I'm doing. And that's also plays a role because I'm not exactly super straight with the scissors. Much more straight with the rotary cutter and a straight edge blade. Or not a blade, but straight edge thing. anyway. All right, let's put the sides on first. So now we're just putting the sides on. And because I gave myself a little extra wiggle room with this strip, I have enough play in the fabric that I do not have to line up the edge right to here. I have a little bit extra play. See that? So that makes it nice. All right. Now if you want to, you can start with a leader. I'm just going to throw this right into the machine. And I'm using this strip as my straight edge because the strip was cleanly cut. And I'm starting with the sides instead of the top and bottom because I have a little extra wiggle room here. And this piece will span the added sides. Okay, if that makes sense. All right, now let's put this on here. And again, if you're bored, speed up or fast forward. Sometimes just hearing the machine is ASMR. And that's kind of peaceful. So open this up. Now again, I'm going to trim the top. Right sides together. And the last piece. This is the last piece, folks. Thanks for hanging in there with me through this whole adventure of sewing this pear quilt block. All right, let's open it up. And there we go. There is our new pear. Okay. Trim. Yeah, I'm gonna trim this up with the ruler because it's not right. But anyway, iron. Hit it with the iron. And trim any extra threads. And there's our new pear. That's our new pear, folks. All right. Here was the original. Here's the new one. Great. All right. Have fun making your pear. I will see you on the next video for the apple. Stay tuned. Have fun making this one. And if you've made other mistakes that I did, or if some of my mistakes helped you, let me know in the comments. I'll see you on the next video. Bye for now.